Welcome to the What If It's Not Depression podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Achina Stein. I'm going to be interviewing Kitti Andrews, and she's going to be talking about decluttering your brain and everything about that. If you like this episode, please click the like button and subscribe. So, Kitti has been for over 20 years helping people to get unstuck and out of a state of overwhelm by getting their physical and mental surroundings under control by helping them to declutter their space and brain. She's written, directed, and performed over 800 online videos devoted to decluttering the 5 life pillars, which furnish the content for her daily newsletter, which you can subscribe to. Her speaking career spans interviews on top podcasts and summits, as well as at Stanford University and Harvard University. She's contributed articles that have garnered her front page status in the Los Angeles Tribune magazine and USA Today. Welcome, Kitti, your thought organizer.
Thank you so much, Achina. I'm honored to be here. I really am. Thank you.
So I'm so curious as to what even got you into doing this work. I would love to hear your story.
Oh, it's been a bit of a journey, which I didn't even realize until recently. Sometimes you trundle on through life and you're not quite sure where your path is, and I've become aware more of it. Those you'll see a picture of a child very carefully stacking building blocks, right? And that's normally an illustration of an autistic child. Or many times it's associated with that, or has been. Well, that was me. Now, back in the day, autism wasn't known at all, and my parents were kind of wondering why I was a totally uncommunicative 2-year-old. And as it turns out, the statistic for boys is 1 in 44 is diagnosed, 1 in 189. You would know better than I. But that's what I've read. Anyway, that's me. But what came along with that was a surprising need, for lack of a better word, for organization. I had a tidy room when I was a kid, and if it went kerflooey, well, it wasn't kerflooey for long, kind of thing. And then fast forward to my first one of my first jobs in an office. And I was a file clerk, and I got promoted to the accounting department. And about a month into it, as I recall, the ladies where I used to work came to me and said, "Would you consider coming and coming back and filing for us part-time? Because we can't find anything anymore. You were the best we ever had." I just had that talent and never really thought of it. Well, gee whiz, it goes alphabetically. How difficult is that? However, maybe not everybody thinks that way. All right. And then into a long restaurant career. During part of it, I was the one always voted to go in and clean the walk-in fridge. Yes, the walk-in fridge where chefs just throw the yogurt back in, throw the eggs back in, wherever, because they don't really care. They just want to be done for the day.
Right.
So, and I just loved doing that. Why? Because I could get off by myself. An autism thing, just get off and get into the quiet and completely just geek out on organizing everything. And so I just loved being chosen to do that. And then into my 18-year cleaning career, which basically mostly revolved around real estate sales. So cleaning for real estate sales, prepping, if you were, and turned into staging. And what I would do is I always felt compelled to just reorganize something just a little bit, even by an inch. Just something had to feel right. And I was very fortunate. Not one client disagreed with me. They all said, you know, I've been meaning to do that, but I wasn't sure, but I'm glad you did it. We're going to leave it this way.
Wow.
And then that morphed into when I thought I really don't want to be cleaning anymore, morphed into staging and then virtual decluttering, which is what I do. I don't go into people's homes. I help them through the screen because it's a less intrusive, more focused way to get rid of a lot of clutter without
Right.
shame. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. I know. I've actually hired people to help me declutter my house because it's easier to do it. Even though I'm pretty organized, it's easier to make decisions about things that you no longer use but have sentimental value for them.
Mhm.
And so it's a matter of really having another person who has eyes on it that can help you make that emotional decision that's tough sometimes, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, yes. Very, very surprisingly.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So why don't you dive in right into what it is that, that you do to clear the clutter and calm the chaos? You know, the five pillars. I'm like, can't wait to hear what it is, these five pillars.
Well, thank you. That's a good question. And it has so many layers to it. So I'm going to try to stick with one layer. If I start to veer off, just reel me back in. Deal?
Okay.
Okay. ADHD, pew, pew, all over. But what I have done is um, niched everything down to the simplest way to do things, and that's what I'm all about. Because clutter, if physical or mental clutter, is by definition overwhelming. People come to me and they say, I don't know where to start. uh,
Mm,
they just look and they say, deer in the headlights. And I'm a perfect example, by the way, because I just finished moving and I had to deal with my late father's stuff and I couldn't do it. I'm
mm,
not kidding you. I couldn't do it. I had to get my best friend neighbor to just sit with me and do it because I just didn't know where to start. So I know only too well the problems, the challenge with this.
right.
And it, he did it exactly the way that I coach people is, all right, we're going to take one box. So I'll tell you about the full system and then show you how it can be niched down. Is that okay?
Awesome. That's
Okay.
awesome. Great.
Okay, so it's the one system, ONE. And what that is one room at a time, one area of that room at a time, and one thing at a time. And
Mm,
I'll break that down
mhm,
quickly. When I say one room at a time, I mean pick one room, pick a horse and ride it, basically.
mhm,
Uh, you don't want to start in the office, for example, and then, okay, well, I've done a little bit here. I think I'll go do the spare bedroom. Why do you not want to do that? Partly because your poor beleaguered brain, by the time you come back to the office, it forgets where it was. It needs to get back into character, like an actor, and you wasted that 15 minutes just remembering where you are and getting that the little engine that could getting that momentum happening. So sticking with one room at a time. Exactly the same deal with one area of that room at a time. Exact same principle.
mm,
Start with one, and that's tough. That
mm.
is tough to even make that decision. Well, I've been meaning to. Well, geez, my desk. I'll do it tomorrow. Okay. So just pick one, close your eyes, pick one, and stick with it.
Yeah.
Again, the momentum thing. And then here we get to the challenging part, one thing at a time. And perfect example, my very, very first client, she she had a huge L-shaped desk and it was 6 inches of papers, not a word of a lie, all over it. She didn't you couldn't see the top of the desk.
Right.
And I said, right, okay, well, I guess we'll start on this one stack of papers and we'll go through it. And she looked at me like I was from Mars, and she says, "You're out of your tree. We're not going through this one at a time." The very first quiet Achina. I didn't know what else to do. So she relented and she said, "All right, I'll try it for 5 minutes." Well, I'll tell you what, 7 minutes into it, she was going through those papers saying, "I don't need bank statements. My accountant doesn't need bank statements. We can have them online. Utility bills, I don't need them. This I don't need. Why do I have?" And so she was retraining her brain into better ways to
Right,
manage the paper. But the defining moment for her was when she reported a couple weeks later. We had thrown out a bunch of trade magazines, and apparently in her world, they go out of date 3 to 6 months. They're done. Okay,
right,
they're
right,
they're they're good for the kitty litter, and that's about it.
right.
Bird cage, I should say. And she said, "I was in the store and my arm just automatically reached for that magazine."
Mm.
And wait a minute now, I just threw away $50 worth, and she didn't buy it.
Wow.
And that of again retraining the brain, and you understand this only too well,
Right,
is you're telling yourself, "I don't really need that." And so that's less clutter coming in. So that is the one system in a nutshell, and it can be applied to not only your physical, your home, but the other H pillars, as I call them, your heart, meaning your relationships, your health, your
hmm,
habits, and your head. Hence, declutter the brain.
right.
And that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, the H pillar. So heart, health, habits, and what was the last
Head
one?
and
Head.
home.
Okay.
Home and head. Yeah.
Home and head. So there's five. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So you were going to give some examples with the other pillars.
Oh, and I love this story. I really do. I, again, one of my first clients, and this was during COVID, so
Uh-huh.
things were a little bit off center. Everyone was at home and more. Um, they had to face their reality, whether it's the husband or the job or the kids or the whatever. It was a strange time. Yes,
Mhm.
we
Right.
uh, and. She and I started. She came to me with physical clutter. Her sun porch entry into her home. Well, she kind of had to walk kind of on tippy toes, kind of
Mm,
stepping over things to get to the door. Not good. And the rest of the house was not much better. And she had just thought, as a few clients did at that time, "Hey, this is a great time. We're stuck at home anyway." And about a month into it, she said, "I think I'm going to start a fitness routine."
mm,
And it, she couldn't go to the gym at that point because gyms were closed, right?
right.
But she did start at home
Hmm.
and she committed to it. And then as soon as the gyms, as soon as things started to open, she does go every day. In fact, one morning she drove her tractor. She lived on a farm. She
Right.
drove her tractor because her truck had broken down. That's how committed this lady was. Now,
Wow.
what does this have to do with decluttering? This is one of two examples that I'll give you. She, I I find that and it usually takes about a month, but I find that when you're doing physical decluttering, it's clearing energies, it's peeling back the layers of the onion, if you
Right.
will,
Yeah.
and you have more clarity. And just saying, yeah, it's like waking up from a fog.
Right.
Hmm?
Right.
Yeah. So another example with this same client is I like to stick to one person. uh, is a couple weeks later, something like that. She said, my husband said something to me that I'm not really sure I liked. And she told me, and I said, is this something new? And she stopped. She physically stopped for quite a few seconds, and she said, come to think of it, he's been saying that kind of thing to me for 25 years of our marriage. But she said she just hadn't noticed it before. And she is one of 3 marriages that I have been credited with saving, along with an abusive marriage, rescuing someone. Just because, once again, something about removing the physical clutter and taking charge of it. I think that's a huge thing, is taking charge of it. Yes, anybody can take out the garbage, but when you've made that decision that, yes, I'm decluttering is taking charge of your life. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
taking control.
Mhm.
And once you've made that decision, the universe opens up and stands up and says, howdy, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my feeling is that physical clutter is actually burdening and taking up space in your brain so
Mhm.
that you can't handle or use that energy to clear a path, so to speak, to things that you really want, or they present as barriers to things that you really need to address emotionally and and process actually. So by removing the physical clutter, it's just one more thing that is taken out of the path that you're distracted by, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
it's a distraction.
absolutely, absolutely. And it just kind of festers there in your
Absolutely.
subconscious, especially your entrance. Many people say, well, where do I start? And really, one size does not fit all, Achina.
Mhm.
Everyone is going to be different. And many times they'll say, okay, what's the first area that jumps in your mind that drives you nuts? First, first, first. Don't overthink it. And one person might say the dining room table. And I say, right, let's start there because it's
Mhm.
top of mind, literally
Right.
top of mind. Uh, but many times I advise to start at the entrance. Why? Because it's the first thing you see when you come home.
Mhm.
Oh, good. I've been meaning to do this. All right. Well, I still have to go make dinner and do chores. I'll get to it later.
Right.
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 Sure.
Yeah, wasted.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah. Or the bedroom.
Right.
The exact same principle. First thing you see when you wake up, and it just puts a pall on your day.
Mhm.
And last thing that now we get into woo, but last thing that you see when you're going to sleep, and I believe that sits in your subconscious, and people have reported that yes, they sleep better after they have even just done a simple decluttering. Doesn't need to be the whole 9 yards. Good Lord, give yourself a break.
Right.
uh, just something simple,
Right. Right.
doable. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I can imagine we haven't used this word to describe it yet, but I would imagine that when people are faced with these tasks, that they get overwhelmed, right, by the process, and especially if they're doing this by themselves.
Mm.
How do you reorganize your space and brain without getting overwhelmed?
Me personally, or for them? I just want to make sure I answer
Well,
this.
yeah, how would you recommend what would you recommend to to do to prevent that overwhelm factor when you're doing this kind of work?
The serious one system. My whole life revolves around the one system, and
Hmm.
I'll tell you why. And you being a super busy entrepreneur and practicing
Psychiatrist.
you're a medical practitioner, you are busy, so
Yes.
you're going to relate to the busy brain.
Right.
And let's leave aside physical for a moment, if you don't mind.
Hmm. Sure.
Imagine you're getting ready for your day, and you're brushing your teeth, and you're starting to think, the brain is starting to go, and you're starting to think, did I remember to write down that I have to email that person? Did I phone that person? Okay, your mental battery is like the iPhone in a, your iPhone battery at the top, and you can just see it going.
Right.
And I used to battle that every single day, especially when my father had passed away and I was still running the business and doing those 800 videos that you mentioned and everything like that. And I thought, I still have people to serve no matter what's going on in my life. I have to find a way to calm the brain down and still get things done. Maybe not as quickly as I used to, but at least get the most important things done. Yes,
Right.
that's right, because there's busy work and then there's the important stuff. And I had to bring it down to the one system. What is the and you can use that two ways. What is the most important thing I have to do today? Or you can say, who needs me? And I'm going to paraphrase Brenda Burchard right now. Who needs me at my best right now? Who needs me the most right now? Is it my assistant? Is it my partner? Is it my child who wants to be fed? Is it my cat, for heaven's sake? Cats are
Right.
people too. Who needs me the most? Or if you're a hermit, well, then you can say what's the most important thing. But the most important thing is very generalized, right? But if you knock that down into, people are not as generalized. You have those people that I just mentioned. But if for what's the most important thing? Well, geez, I don't know. There are emails and phone calls, and I've got to post on social if that's what you do. And no, doom scrolling is not a must do. Okay.
Right. Right.
Pick one of those categories. Okay. All right. And I visibly breathe when I finally make a decision. Okay, I will do just emails for the next 20 minutes or so. And that's all I'm going to do. Okay, am I going to look at? All right, now let's niche that down further. Am I going to read the emails, or am I going to respond to perhaps ones from yesterday or whatever, and just keep breaking it down and breaking it down to almost a silly, simplistic, but it works for me. It's worked for my clients. It just really helps your brains, especially in times of stress, when, don't forget, you're not thinking as clearly as you could. Then if you just make it as simple as you can, and geez, I have another example of making things simple too. I don't know how much time we have left. But yeah, that's how I handle the overwhelm. And again, that can be where that applies to all of the pillars. We already talked about the physical, but say for example, your health. You now this lady, she wanted to join a fitness program, but what did she do? She broke it down. She decided, all right, I have a goal. They tell you how have goals. Okay, I want to, in her case, it was lose 20 pounds. She was pretty muscular anyway, but just had that little extra. And okay, so she wanted to lose 20 pounds and get back to her former toned self. And so what do I need to do to accomplish that? All right, I want slash need a nutritionist. I want slash need a personal trainer. I know that I need to get rid of the junk food in my house, and my husband's just going to have to go and eat junk food in the garage. I don't care. But that's an example of in your health and in your habits. Oh, do people try? Why do New Year's resolutions fail, Gina? Because people take on too much and they get overwhelmed.
Exactly. Yes.
Pick one small habit to change. Get comfortable with that for about 3 weeks. In fact, that's my upcoming videos this week is structure. And
Mhm.
just take that one small, just take one habit and get it under your belt, and then the next one, and then the next one. Again, you're retraining your brain.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, it is actually habit stacking, and that's really important. We call it habit stacking. Start with one thing, get that under your
Habit stacking. Yes, I like that.
Yeah,
Very.
it's very helpful to get comfortable, like you said, and then that prevents the whole overwhelm factor. It is to break it down as much as possible. It's
Yes,
really,
yes.
really important. Yeah. So, I understand that you have found that mental and physical clutter actually undermines your energy, finances, and your business as well. If you have a business or a job, or I
Mhm.
clearly, I think people clearly understand how it undermines your energy, but how does it undermine your finances and your job, or
Oh,
school if you're in school? So what would you say?
well, it, and I'm thinking from an entrepreneurial standpoint because those are people that I normally talk to,
Hmm.
but we can use them, and everybody will be able to glean something from this.
Hmm.
Say for example, you're an entrepreneur and stick with me here because it's going to
Hmm.
be a little bit of a journey. It's not a straight arrow. um, you you're an entrepreneur, you're coming to a call with a potential new client, and you come and you look a little frazzled, your hair is a little bit off. Well, everybody can have an off hair day, that's okay, that's okay. But uh, I've got a pencil here. I just had something.
Hmm.
Does that undermine your credibility?
Sure.
They
Yeah.
may still sign on with you. They
Right.
might. All right. But if you continue that behavior, if you
Mhm.
keep coming to calls, uh, not under control, and even if you look it, I tell you what, if you don't feel it, those people sense it. They
Right.
sense it. They don't even know that they sense it. But when it comes to renewal time or referral time, that's costing you money.
Hmm.
And how does that translate to someone who's not an entrepreneur? Well, same deal.
Hmm.
Relationships, for example, if you are not feeling comfortable in your surroundings or in your own skin, your partner, for example, and I have seen this, I can give you a quick example of this. Um, they start to get antsy and
Hmm.
they don't even know why. They just know that something isn't right.
Hmm.
And when I mentioned the three marriages that have come and that came back to life. One woman, she started with me and she said, "We're looking into divorce. That's
Hmm.
just the state of the nation. That's what's going to happen."
Hmm.
You can tell I'm in Canada. State of the Union. That that's just what's going to happen. And in
Hmm.
a couple of months, I don't think it was even a couple of months, I think it was about 6 weeks, but she kept plugging away at what she called the disaster of a living room.
Hmm.
And she kept plugging away at it. And then again, somewhere around week 6, she opened the call was saying, "I don't believe it. I'm going to share this with you, but I don't believe it. My husband started tidying part of his office." I guess he
Hmm.
was a bit of a clutter freak too, but he used to do clutter bug, but he used to jump on her case
Hmm.
about, you see, he was seeing her efforts to improve, and he started to do a bit of a monkey see, monkey do, if you will. But
Hmm.
maybe he was seeing also some more, she was calmer. So
Hmm.
he was calmer, and it
Hmm.
just had a trickle down effect. And I've seen that work with parents and their children.
Right. Yeah.
And I have one client who is up and down with her clutter. And she's determined. She came to me to teach her kid good habits, and she's frustrated. So she's saying, okay, well, I'm gonna get this. And she has noticed that her child is 8 years old, 9 years old, something
Mhm.
like that. And that her child is calmer when the surroundings are calmer.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So it has a trickle down effect. There is no doubt in my mind or any of my clients' minds or
Right.
in your mind, I suspect.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I think decluttering is really, really important. And so, one of the things that I have found that in my town, I don't know if you're familiar with this, there is an organization and it's called Buy Nothing and whatever your town is. It's in Facebook, the Facebook
Oh
group
yeah,
part of, right? Are you familiar with Buy Nothing and then the town?
I've heard
Yeah.
of it. Yes.
So one of the ways that I have found freedom with decluttering is what do you, when you want to get rid of things, where do you send them to, right? And some people, I mean, there are organizations like Salvation Army and Big Sisters
Sure.
that will certainly take a lot of things, but if but they kind of have to be in pretty good condition and or not broken or whatever. And there are
Mhm.
people who will take things and fix them because that's kind of their hobby. So I have found that, the my town's Buy Nothing organization, and that's how you look it up, Buy Nothing, and then put your town in, is a way to just post, this is what I have, this is what's wrong with it. Anybody want it for free? And it has to be for free. Everything has to
Mhm.
be given away for free. And there are things that people will post that's like, oh, I really wanted that. And, been wondering how, whether or not that would work for me. And if it doesn't work for you, then you put it back on the site and say, this didn't work for me. So
Yeah.
it's a great way to get rid of stuff that you don't need and allow for other people to use it, especially if you're done with it, for example, a book
Yeah.
or just stuff that you hadn't used in a while and it's kind of just laying around, collecting
Mhm.
dust.
Mhm.
Someone else could use it. So yeah, I
One.
did mention that because yeah, one of the things that I wanted to ask you before we end is like, so it's good and sometimes people do a great job of decluttering, but then it's the maintenance piece, right? So
Ah.
so how do you maintain like a newly organized space for maximum mental clarity, productivity, and maybe even, success in their career or organization that they work for?
How do you maintain it? Well, there are a few ways. Once you have gotten yourself decluttered,
Mhm,
and now many people have trouble organizing,
mhm,
and they will hire someone to come in and organize for them. And
mhm,
I don't think that that's such a good idea because it's not your system. It's not custom made to your brain. So I suggest when you start to set up your organizing system, and by the way, don't try to organize before you declutter. You can't do it. You shouldn't do it. Don't do it. You're wasting your time. Um,
Well, that's a good point. And can you just expand upon that? Why? Why is that?
Well, because you're just shuffling things from one to the other. You're not getting rid of what I call the ghosts of the past, ghosts of people past, ghost of business past, ghost of courses back and past. We all keep stuff just in case. Oh, I'm gonna need that. Yes, that business course that you took 15 years ago. Yeah, yeah, you're good. Now, you may want to sift through it, and there may be a couple of things, but my point is that those things carry energy that that no longer serves you, and that's what clutter is that would defined as that which no longer serves you. So if you're just shuffling around old energies, you're not freeing yourself for something that's new. Again, with the
Mm,
woo, but it's there. It's true. I
it's
moved here
true.
with a few things that I know that I was in a hurry, but I've been throwing away a lot of stuff and feeling better for it. So that's part of the reason why you don't want to organize before you declutter. And when you do, finally, you can do it by yourself. But I suggest that you have somebody with you, even just the occasional time to say, what do you think of? A second pair of eyes can be a
Mhm.
very good thing. Now we get to your question about maintenance.
Mhm.
I'm going to choose one area. You're going to be sick of the word one.
No, it's a good point to drive
You,
home. It's a really good point to drive home. Yeah. One.
it makes such a difference, especially when you're teaching your children to declutter.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, big, because they understand one. It's
Mhm.
easy with your brains. Anyway, but I digress. Uh, let's pick one area. Say, for example, many people work at home, so they'll be able to they'll be able to relate to this, whether or not they're entrepreneurs. Let's choose your desk or your work area, wherever it is.
Mhm.
Take 5 minutes at the end of the day. Probably not even going to take that long. 5 minutes at the end of the day to either file the papers, or if you can't bring yourself to do that, at least stack them nicely. Make your desk envision how you want it to look the next day.
Mhm.
Okay, so that it evokes peace at 5:30 in the morning or 8:30 in the morning, whatever time it is. Just take that 5 minutes and and tidy, declutter, take the coffee cup to the kitchen, kind of.
Mhm.
And that same principle affects everything in the house. It's
Mhm.
just a matter of once you've gotten it done, then you're training yourself. I have one cool tip. The moment, well, remind me, is just training yourself that I'm making a decision,
Right.
frankly. Okay, I've spent all this time and possibly invested money in getting decluttered. I'm going to keep it that way, not I gotta keep it that way. No, I'm going to keep it that way.
Because you
And
want to.
exactly,
Yeah.
yes. And you make that decision, and as Larry Winget says, you make the decision, you make it right. Waitress tip, this is one of the best, especially since I moved into a bigger apartment. You're supposed to downsize. Not me. I always go a different way. Is the waitress tip, never walk empty-handed. You
Mhm.
can always carry one thing from one room to the next. And I've
Mhm.
caught myself a couple times saying, "Oh, I'll pick it up with Kitty, you know better. Pick
Mhm.
it up, take it to the kitchen." No.
Mhm.
That one step alone, that one step alone makes all the difference
Right.
in the maintenance. It just makes it so easy and brainless
Mhm.
and easy, and everybody can do it. The cat would do it if he could.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, we actually have a system in our house where if it has to go upstairs, we at least bring it to the staircase, and there's a little pocket where it's enough room that you can just put it on the stairwell. So when you are going up, you can pick it up and go up. And same thing going down too, like just put it at the edge. So you're not,
Absolutely.
but it doesn't hurt to have a little exercise going up and down too.
Well, there's that about it too, right? Yeah, we all need more exercise. And I've unfortunately seen people that will, okay, yeah, I've got this great pile. Ooh, yeah, that's been there for a couple months. You can have that pile at the bottom of the stairs, but yeah, you do still need to declutter it.
Right,
Train yourself. Never walk empty-handed. Make it so that if you have an empty hand, you're wondering why.
right.
Do I really have nothing to carry?
Yeah,
And that, just small steps like that. Do you see it,
absolutely.
where the
Mhm.
5 minutes or the one hand or anything like that add up to huge,
Mhm.
life-changing, life maintaining results where you really can be decluttered for life?
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have a tip, and I don't know if this is something that you do or recommend, but there's the art projects that are left behind by children who have grown into older adults, and now they've moved out, and and they don't want it. But it's in
Yep.
your home, but there is a special place in your heart for it, like the little pin made out of little plastic baubles that was made in second grade by your child, right? What do you like? I've had stuff like that, and my recommendation is to take a picture of it.
Yep.
Take a picture of it, because it will actually bring up the same emotions that
Yes.
sentimental object. It's the sentimentality that you want to keep, not necessarily the object. So I always recommend taking a picture of it. You'll always have that picture, especially if it's digital, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and pass on the little thing that your child made, and it might be fine putting it in the garbage, because most people probably don't necessarily want it, unless you maybe have somebody who's artistic and might incorporate it in their art project, but the likelihood of that is really low, you know.
That's right.
Likelihood of, so saving it for those kinds of things is not a good idea. But it's hard to put things in the garbage. It really is for
Yeah.
people to,
Oh, yeah.
so it's easy to give it to someone else, but it's really hard to throw it out.
Mhm.
you know
And yeah, and I get asked about that. The top three things that trouble people are sentimental decluttering, digital decluttering, and uh, it went out of my head. It'll come to me. Sentimental and small spaces, where to put things.
right.
Because many, a lot of construction now just doesn't have the storage space.
Right.
And one client of mine, what did she do? She taught me this trick, because she was moving from, I'm looking at a map of the states here. So she was moving from Washington State to Minnesota.
Hmm.
And she had sentimental stuff like you don't believe, and crafts and all of this kind of stuff. And she knew she could only take so much in a U-Haul.
Hmm.
So it took her 3 months to do this.
Right. Right.
And what did she do? She said, do I want to, number one, put this in the U-Haul, because she had a bad back as well. So
Mhm.
she had a few factors. And do I want to unpack it at the other end? I
Exactly.
want to take this across country. So when I moved in here, I actually used that criteria and pretended it was cross country. And do I want it that badly? No. You'd be
Right.
amazed how quickly you can make decisions. Oh yeah.
Yes. Exactly. That's exactly right. But unfortunately, what some people do is that they'll get a storage unit, right? And pay monthly payments and I strongly recommend that people not do that. So if you're listening, do not do that. And because it'll sit there and you're paying a monthly payment, $100 a month, $150 a month, that all adds up, and then the worth of whatever it is that you're storing is just, you might as
Yep.
well just trash it. And by the time you open it up and look at it, you think, why did I even keep this? It's gotten moldy, dusty, and
Mhm.
then you can't resell it.
Right.
So it really is money down the drain getting in the extra storage unit. It's better to just live within your space and give it away or sell it, as opposed to
Yeah.
keeping it. Yeah, I cannot tell you how many people have done that, and then in the long run, when they go back into that space, and some people don't even go back into that space, they just keep paying the monthly payment. So
Oh yes.
yeah, just get rid of it. If you're not using it, get rid of it, sell it, and stop paying that
Absolutely.
monthly payment.
Now, sometimes in people's defense, there
Right.
can be an emergency. When I was getting rid of my father's stuff, I just plain and simple did not have a place, and I
Right.
didn't have time to go through everything, like just didn't. And
Right.
so I did rent that storage unit for two
Right.
months
Right. Yes,
because
temporary. I
I
think they're good
refused. Yeah.
for temporary reasons. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, when our office facility had a major flood, we moved everything out immediately that we could salvage, and put it all in storage. And then when we got our new office space, we moved it from the storage, and that was within 5 months. So, I mean, it serves a purpose, but some people get put things in storage because they think that they'll use it someday, or because of
Right.
financial reasons, or and it just doesn't come to fruition, and in the end it actually ends up not being good, for especially if they're not climate controlled, or right, and
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
or cared
Yeah.
for appropriately. Yeah. So things end up falling apart, getting moldy, or,
Mhm.
and because of just, especially if it's not climate controlled. So I strongly encourage people to not do that, to only use those storage spaces for temporary reasons, not for permanent, yeah, storage.
Yeah. Would you agree with me, in your capacity as a psychiatrist,
Hmm.
that that storage closet is an extra weight on the brain?
Oh, absolutely.
Something
Yeah.
in the back
Yeah.
that's just saying, "Oh, yeah, I've got to get to that." Well, out of sight, out of mind, but it's
Right.
still there.
Right, right. Yeah, and then but it's you're also spending money, where you could probably use that for other things that are in the now, right?
Mhm.
I mean, to me, that storage represents the past of some sort, and not the now.
Absolutely.
And you could be using that for your health, or for something that you could really be using now, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree. It's a burden. There is certainly a burden that is there. It's kind of itching away at you, on
Yeah.
some level. Yeah. Yeah,
It's knocking at your shoulder and you're just kind of
exactly.
going brushing it off your shoulder.
And
If
that
it
takes energy, and it's negative energy. Absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
yes.
Well, yeah. So, great conversation here. I could talk forever about this. Or techniques, but we need to stop. I know you have something to offer, to give away, your 7 easy steps to conquer your physical and mental clutter guide, which I don't have a link for, but I think you can probably send that to me. And but you have a website, declutterthebrain.com, and your
Mhm.
Instagram and Facebook. All these links will be in the show notes. And I, really have enjoyed having this conversation, and hopefully it's helpful to people to really see how much cluttering can actually be chaos in your brain. Physical clutter can be mental clutter and chaos in your brain. And so getting rid of that clutter will absolutely help to calm you on some level.
Yes,
It's not the whole story. It's not doesn't calm everybody completely down, because it's obviously multifactorial, but this is a factor that people may not
yes,
even realize. Yes.
absolutely. And of course, to the title of this show, what if it's not depression,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Could it be part of the partly clutter?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so something for people to think about. So thank you so much, Kitty, for being here. I really appreciate you, and I wish you a great weekend.
Thank you very much, Achina. I really appreciate it. And this was fun.
Yeah.